Nyanji Jimbor Zoldan Yumi Zongzon Monum Chimbor Nagata, Palkar Targan Santo Sherman, Stomba Tijan La Kisham Sar, General Zen, Jangam Sanjawar Tijishan, La Yella, and Jimmy Penzojala, Soran, going to Tobam Hor Shinji Lo.
The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. We now continue teaching the Udāna Sūtra. In the Udāna Sūtra, we're now teaching the 10th chapter, the chapter on faith. In the chapter on faith, yesterday we taught one verse at the beginning, so today we'll continue teaching. This chapter isn't particularly long.
Ftarnam jen la jis yerava, tina detak jand, dega dru, degar myon, devar myon.
The miserly don't reach heaven, the foolish don't praise giving, the steadfast rejoice in giving, in future lives they enjoy peace. This verse mainly teaches, it seems at that time in the heaven of the 33, there was a tall tree, and in the tree, it seems in the tree, or made from the tree, there was a palace. In this palace there was a deva. At that time, Bhiksu Gavampati went there and asked this deva, "How long have you stayed here?" Then the deva, in the Tibetan text, you should look at this story then to see if my understanding is the same. This deva said he was a certain prince. At that time, he became some prince. At that time, nihilistic views arose in his mind stream. Later, someone called Kashyapa youth tamed him. His answer was, perhaps in the human world or something, he became a prince. At first there were nihilistic views in his mind stream, but later, after being inspired by Kashyapa youth, perhaps he came to like giving, made aspirations, and then was born in the heavenly realm. Because of this matter, the Buddha taught this verse. But if my understanding is wrong, you should tell me then. Sometimes the Indian commentary may be a little bit difficult to understand. Perhaps for you to teach it's relatively simple. Sometimes each person's way of understanding differs. It seems I find this section very difficult, but others immediately find it relatively easy. Perhaps is this how to understand it? Look at it then. If not, we can change it. So the meaning of this verse is because this chapter mainly teaches faith. This faith should be the same as the faith we usually speak of. Mainly it's faith in the three jewels, in the Four Noble Truths, in the entire karmic cause and effect of the Noble Ones, etc., generating interest and joy in all these. This is called faith. So here it says, if one is miserly, stingy, tight-fisted, because they don't know the merit and result of giving, their own mind stream is bound by much unwillingness to give and stinginess. So as long as one is miserly, this kind of stingy person, their fate won't be rebirth in the heavenly realms. And similarly, this foolish person also doesn't praise giving. Usually some foolish people in the world, especially those who don't understand Buddhism and the Mahayana 6 paramitas, these people who haven't understood not only don't praise, they may denigrate giving. If others give, then they begin to attack. Thinking giving is useless, they keep denigrating and slandering such situations. Generally, they won't be reborn in the heavenly realms, teaching about the opposite of not giving. Then as for the steadfast, steadfast here in several places means the wise. In the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, steadfast refers to bodhisattvas, because bodhisattvas, whether benefiting beings or practicing the 6 paramitas themselves, have very firm vows. So, steadfast. In other places it says steadfast, but here we won't say bodhisattva. So the steadfast in the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras and the steadfast in the Udāna Sūtra, the way of explanation is different, because here it's the wise, those with wisdom. In several places it's explained as the wise. So as for the wise, not only do they give themselves, they also praise giving because they understand its benefits. And if others give, they rejoice greatly in their hearts. So if this is the case, then because of the benefit of praising, the benefit of giving in other worlds, including the heavenly realms, in other worlds they attain enjoyment and happiness. Because if we give, after giving we don't regret. And when giving, it's divided into several aspects. At the beginning, you like giving, you have the mind of giving. In the middle, giving, the mind is joyful. At the end, you don't generate regret. In this situation, they can be reborn in heaven and enjoy peace. Even if they don't enjoy the heavenly realms, in the human world, they also enjoy some peace. There's someone called Payasa or something. The commentary says there was someone who liked giving. Because of giving, they possessed wealth. There are also some doubts, because this chapter mainly teaches faith, so in this verse, in all 4 lines, there's no mention of faith at all. Faith isn't mentioned, so perhaps it doesn't accord, isn't suitable. If there's such a doubt, the answer is there's no fault. Why? Because whether it's here, praising giving, or rejoicing in giving, or not being miserly, all of these are based on faith and arise. Without faith, doing these things is impossible. So through reasoning, for example, if there's smoke, we know there's fire there. Therefore, inferring in this way, in a very few verses, perhaps faith isn't explicitly mentioned, but actually it's inseparable from faith. So here, although in the verse faith isn't explicitly mentioned twice, in meaning, indeed faith also exists. This point I think we all should also know. Because those without faith, having them give, having them rejoice, having them praise is basically impossible. So faith is the root of all dharmas. It's also very important in practice. In Dzogchen, in the secret teachings, the faculty of faith among all faculties is foremost. Because with faith, even if other many qualities aren't possessed, there's also realization. Or foolish people with faith, they can attain siddhis, attain accomplishments. So faith is extremely important. In our wish-fulfilling treasury, there's a special chapter teaching the importance of 6 kinds of faith. The words of my perfect teacher also teaches, when taking refuge in the 3 jewels, before this, its foundation is teaching 3 kinds of faith. So the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras also, regarding faith, explains it very extensively. Whether Mahayana Buddhism or Hinayana Buddhism, this faith is indeed indispensable. Whether monastics or lay people, we can also see it seems that a person, no matter what their status, but if faith is insufficient, perhaps the realization in their mind stream is just so-so. And when they propagate the Dharma and benefit beings, the Dharma they speak may also be quite tasteless, without much nourishment, without much blessing power. So the gurus of past generations we've also taught before, for example, like His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, he also often, whenever mentioning his root guru, His Holiness Togyal Rinpoche, continuously begins to manifest, shedding tears, choking with emotion, etc. There are such situations. So looking at our predecessors, the great masters, those with some accomplishment, the faith in their mind streams is very sufficient. So if we want to have faith in our mind streams, on one hand, perhaps through studying the Dharma extensively, reading many biographies of gurus, and also frequently examining ourselves, cultivating this faith in our mind streams, and also frequently having less contact with bad friends. It seems people without faith in their mind streams, if you associate with them for a period of time, gradually, slowly, your own faith begins to decline. And also looking at various information unrelated to faith or that damages faith also damages one's faith. Perhaps it's best to be in some quiet places where past great masters have resided and very devoutly, deeply. Pray to your 3 roots and Dharma protectors. In this way, in one's mind stream, naturally, there will be many spiritual experiences, realizations. These are also very important. So if we don't have faith, indeed, practicing many dharmas is also quite difficult. So here faith is very important.
Dana kevi norm chok tat parte dana chula lokshudu deva tobu dimba kona ropchor namdi per shirip jinson tsovim chokji song.
Among humans, faith is the supreme wealth. Practicing good dharma brings happiness. The true taste is most excellent. Living wisely is best among ways of life. A diva asked the Buddha, "What is the best wealth in the world? What is the best happiness? What is the most beautiful, the truest taste? And also, among ways of life, what is the most valuable way of living?" They raised 4 questions. Then the Buddha, according to the Deva's questions, answered with this verse, "Among humans, faith is the supreme wealth." In our human world, of course, there are many kinds of wealth, including worldly gold, silver, and treasures, houses and cars, and also including money now, etc., all kinds of wealth. But among all these wealths, what is the best wealth? It's faith. With faith, even if you have no other wealth, are destitute, very poor, penniless, extremely poor, but actually the wealth they possess, they already have it all, because other wealth may be stolen by thieves, robbed by bandits, burned by earth, water, fire, wind, destroyed by various obstacles. But with faith, not only is it possessed in this life, but also in future lives it won't be exhausted. So in the human world, of course, those without faith definitely won't acknowledge this. In the world now, there are so many people without faith. Even if they have faith in other things. These people may not necessarily acknowledge it, but if we are among the community with faith, one's own faith is very important. Having nothing else is fine. Sometimes we also look, if we ourselves have other wealth but no faith, it's a bit pitiful. If you don't have other wealth, but as long as faith is sufficient, this is a very good practitioner. This is the first. Then second, among all virtuous conduct, including giving, keeping precepts, etc., among all virtuous conduct, this happiness from Dharma, among all dharmas, the happiness from Dharma is the happiest. Otherwise, in the world, for example, there are also various obtained through practicing virtue, and also worldly happiness like drinking, smoking, killing, watching shows, traveling and sightseeing everywhere. All kinds of happiness exist. But if we practice virtue, this happiness from Dharma, that should be the greatest happiness. Many people probably don't have much else, but truly in the Dharma, enjoying the true nectar and flavor of the Buddha's Dharma, that is the happiest thing. Among humans, true happiness is still the Dharma joy, which is very important. Then among worldly tastes, there are also various kinds of tastes. Everyone knows 6 tastes, 7 tastes, sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, whatever, or whatever kinds of delicious flavors there are, gourmet delicacies, etc. But these tastes only temporarily stimulate your senses. Very quickly they disappear without a trace. The true taste is our upholding the pratimoksha precepts, the fragrance of pure discipline. As mentioned before, the fragrance of discipline. In the human world, it is the most beautiful, the best, the most fragrant. So this is the most excellent. In the world, this discipline, so faith and Dharma joy. The second one is probably mainly generosity. The third is discipline. Then fourth, among all these ways of life, there are all kinds. Some live by killing, some live by trading, some live as fishermen, prostitutes, etc. But among all ways of living, living by wisdom, because with true wisdom in one's mind stream, understanding the truth of all phenomena, or having this worldly conventional wisdom that can observe and discern the truth of all phenomena, whether, like in the sword of wisdom for thoroughly ascertaining reality, as it says, the wisdom that penetrates ultimate truth, or the wisdom that penetrates conventional truth, those with wisdom living in this world should be the happiest. So other ways of life actually may not necessarily be beneficial. So we probably also need to observe what is most precious in the world. Faith, the joy of giving, the flavor of keeping precepts, and also having wisdom, not being blind, a way of life of people without wisdom, is also quite pitiful, everyone knows. Now, in the world it's also like this. Some create negative karma every day while living. It looks like they're also living, and they also seem to live quite freely with money, status, wealth, but they only live a temporary happiness. When they leave this life, certainly in the 3 lower realms, they'll experience boundless suffering. At that time, just as we said yesterday, laughing while creating karma, crying while experiencing it. This is also very pitiful. So we ourselves also, when studying this sutra, should think again, do we possess a life of faith, giving, discipline and wisdom? If you have it, even if you look relatively poor, even if your life seems to lack much excitement and flavor, it looks like it's not colorful or particularly wonderful. But you should be living very meaningfully, so living in this way is important. Very important, especially the faith we mentioned before. Faith is the source of the path and mother of merit, nurturing all virtuous dharmas. We've used this once before. The Avatamsaka Sutra also teaches this. Many great masters in Han regions also often say this repeatedly, but actually, do we ourselves have this faith? Indeed, if you have faith, it is the root and mother of merit of all paths, so through it everything grows. We can also see, among us practitioners, it seems if this person has very good faith, they view all people and dharmas with pure perception. Their mind stream has great faith in the lineage gurus, great faith in their own dharma, great faith in their own practice center. This kind of faith is truly precious. For ourselves also, now at this age, seeing who has faith, wow, this person certainly, although their wisdom isn't their eloquence also isn't that good. But because they have faith, many other qualities naturally manifest. Without faith, although this person looks good, has power, has status and influence, and perhaps wisdom and eloquence are also good, but without faith it seems all their actions are like a building without foundation. At a certain time, everything will be destroyed completely. So we should see that in the Buddha Dharma, faith is very important. Below we teach on the path leading to nirvana, delighting in the Arhat's Dharma, the wise respectfully listen and attain that wisdom. This is also someone asking the Buddha, what kind of person attains this wisdom, attains right view? At that time, the Buddha answered about this kind of person with this verse, meaning, because here it mainly teaches the cause of wisdom is faith, mainly teaching that the cause of wisdom is faith. So on the path leading to nirvana, if we want to proceed on the path to nirvana, the path to liberation, then delighting in the Arhat's Dharma, they have joy and interest in the Arhat's Dharma, which is established through scriptural authority and reasoning, and then the Dharma by which accomplishment is attained. Arhat means Arhant, having destroyed all afflictions, attained all wisdom, such a fruition. So this is attained through verbal instruction and practice. So if you truly want to proceed on the path to liberation, first you must have faith in the Dharma of liberation, like in Hinayana, this Dharma of selflessness of persons, like in Mahayana. On this basis, there's the Dharma of selflessness of phenomena. So whether the Dharma of emptiness, or temporarily in our conduct, possessing the great compassion and bodhicitta of Mahayana, such Dharma. So for this Dharma, actually the Arhat's Dharma, you must have this faith. The wise respectfully listen. As the wise, actually you begin to listen with respectful mind. This mainly teaches, this is the wisdom of hearing. Faith is actually the foundation. Through it, wisdom is attained. So in this way, this faith, as the wise, those with wisdom, how do they get faith? They can listen in the presence of other spiritual friends. They can listen, and through listening can attain. Only then can true wisdom be attained. So here, this wisdom mainly teaches it's attained through faith. Perhaps mainly the Four Noble Truths, 12 links of dependent origination, etc. These Dharma gates can be attained. After attaining them, your wisdom opens. So what's mainly taught here, our practice still has stages of the path. Of course, like in the adornment of the middle way, in some cases, first generating wisdom, then entering with faith. A very few such cases also exist. First realizing the nature of Dharma, then entering. But here it mainly is first having what? Faith. Then attaining this wisdom, just as the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra also says, the great ocean of Buddha Dharma, faith enables entry, wisdom enables crossing. The great ocean of Buddha Dharma, first having faith, after having faith, wisdom arises. After having wisdom, then you can cross the great ocean of samsara. Only then can you cross samsara. So this sequence cannot be confused. If the sequence is confused, then practice also cannot be attained. Previously, in some biographies of great masters, there's also this. When Atisha came to Tibetan area, teaching from the difficulty of obtaining human birth all the way to the Dharma of rebirth, the stages of the path, once Dromtonpa said to him, "You transmit to many other disciples the profound secret mantra dharmas, so why did you only transmit the stages of the path to me?" Atisha said, "This is very suitable. First you should build this foundation well, so I still many times transmit such stages of the path Dharma to you secretly, not transmitting it publicly. So now many of us think perhaps the preliminary stages are very simple, perhaps this isn't that important. Most important is perhaps the main practice, but actually, at that time, Atisha originally also didn't transmit much secret Dharma, but to his best disciple, his most important disciple, he first transmitted the stages of the path. Later, Dromtonpa became the successor of his Dharma lineage. So now also in various places, some scholars, some practitioners, in their learning process, valuing the preliminaries is very important. I also hope everyone doesn't think we can complete the preliminary practices once and that's enough, or practice once and that's enough. Actually, logically speaking, repeatedly reading, repeatedly studying, in this way one's mind stream gradually transforms. However, in our academy, first theoretically graduating, then when graduating, beginning to practice the preliminaries, then receiving pith instructions and graduating. As for receiving pith instructions, now many people in Han region say, "I received pith instructions." Actually, sometimes they don't quite understand the Dharma, what are called pith instructions. They think so-called pith instructions are secretly telling you a sentence or two, and you've already awakened. Actually, this Qiao in pith instructions and Xiao in secretly are not the same character. Can you teach me a pith instruction? Then when requesting pith instructions, they all speak in low voices. Can you help me request a pith instruction? But actually these pith instructions may also be important, but so-called pith instructions, His Holiness never taught separate pith instructions to all of us. Meeting the conditions, like completing the preliminaries at this time, teaching together with everyone who practices the Dharma method. This is very important. So now some say they've received pith instructions, but receiving pith instructions, basically in our Dzogchen, there are some practice methods and teachings. After people with faith listen, you'll awaken. People without faith, no matter how it's transmitted, not to mention secretly teaching during the day, even at midnight, like when the sixth patriarch received the Dharma, they may not necessarily awaken. So perhaps the sequence of practice is still very important. At that time, Puchungwa asked Gonpawa a question. He said, if a person comprehends the 5 major treatises and also has the 5 eyes, 6 supernatural powers, and 8 kinds of siddhis, all these are already possessed. But another person knows nothing of these, only understands a little of the stages of the path Dharma. If they understand the preliminary stages of the path, which one is more important? At that time, Gonpawa answered, if you comprehend the others, like the 5 major treatises or the 5 sciences and also the 5 eyes and 6 supernatural powers, these aren't important. When we wander in samsara, we've attained these many times in other lives. But most important, if the stages of the path truly arise in one's mind stream, even just a very little of this realization can eradicate the root of samsara. So these great masters of previous generations generations, it's not because they learned a lot, learned enough to fill 5 carts, extremely much. That's not necessarily especially impressive. And memorizing especially much also isn't necessarily it. Most crucial is, can the Dharma integrate with the mind? For example, today when we teach faith, do you yourself actually have faith or not? If not, what should you do? Whether we teach discipline or teach vigilance or impermanence from before, each of these principles repeatedly examine yourself. At this time, it should be very good. You're keeping a diary. Sometimes perhaps there's a verse that's very helpful to you. You can also note, this verse I especially like, it's very helpful to me. In outside reading notes now, there's often this phenomenon. Which book I read today benefited me greatly. In the process of chatting with friends today, that sentence touched me deeply. From then on, my mind stream changed, etc. In this way, I think it's also very meaningful. So here we know, if you want to attain liberation, you must first listen to the teachings. Then this wisdom can arise in your mind stream. In this way, the true stages of the path of faith. This is the meaning.
Vak chen ki na yam so tang tape chiwar namle jur sunri ki na dungur pon shirap ki na yang tak jir.
This seems to also be a diva asking, by what can one cross rivers? By what can one cross the great ocean? By what can I abandon my suffering? And also by what can one be purified? Here it says, carefulness crosses the great ocean, faith crosses rivers, diligence abandons suffering, wisdom attains purity. The last should be purity. Change attains truth, too attains purity. So the meaning is, the story it seems has already been told. This carefulness being careful, vigilance careful, because this mainly teaches through faith one can eliminate faults. Eliminate which faults? Here it teaches with carefulness or our vigilance, being especially attentive. Indeed, this vigilance, I don't know how well it was learned. And for this person, still, of course, if one is inattentive, saying this to everyone isn't good either. But theoretically, we understand quite well. Doing anything still, as we said the other day, a person themselves being quite sensitive, attentive. Now look at many of those people with certain status. They are especially alert to everything, very vigilant. So as Buddhists, as monastics, in many behaviors, oh, this is allowed, this isn't allowed. Being especially attentive, this is called being careful, cautious, as mentioned before, as if treading on thin ice, as if approaching a deep abyss. Tradition also teaches this way. So the ancients were very attentive in all aspects. People now are not like this. People now are becoming more and more exposed, more and more without shame. This is treated as a very good thing. Indeed, now we before, including Tibetan people, in many aspects were cautious, relatively conservative in all aspects. But now many, including some advertisements now developing tourism, in this process, many Tibetan boys and girls have no sense of shame. Now many on the internet say things like, for example, some girls say, we are Tibetan people waiting for outsiders. And how I start a family openly like this. Many males, like in Shindukiao over there, before it was females who were commonly the focus of attention. Now males come out publicly to attract female consumers' attention, doing all kinds of things, including being nearly naked and so on. This isn't anything new, because before, places like the Netherlands and some foreign countries had this tradition, but now it's already reached Tibetan areas, and many people think this is very good, because without shame, without any sense of modesty, heedless, very dissolute, many people think this is very good, because in this era, superficial behaviors and superficial principles, they think this should be very good, it should be like this. Without wisdom, following along, of course, they are another group. We also don't need to. Each has their own. Some merchants have various ways of advertising, especially if the consumers are female. Then males come out doing all kinds of things for them, like animals, all kinds. So the whole concept of morality now in Tibetan areas is also suffering a very great ethical damage. So in this way, including Buddhists and monastics, eventually their values will gradually be damaged, will change. And then in one's mind stream, pure conduct and pure deportment, they'll think this is old-fashioned, this is decayed, without meaning. What should be greatly appreciated is what's now especially open, exposed, all kinds of things displayed before the eyes. They think this is very good. If this is the case, one's own mind, if it becomes one with these external heedless behaviors very quickly, one's own faith, generosity, discipline, including wisdom, will gradually decline. Eventually, it's impossible to deeply enter the scriptures. It's impossible. So if you have a cautious mind, you can cross what? The great ocean of the three lower realms. If you have faith, you can cross the four great torrents, four great rivers, the four great rivers of birth, old age, sickness, and death. You can also cross them. If you have diligence, then you abandon the suffering in the three realms. In some explanations, these qualities correspond to different stages of the path. Carefulness crosses the great ocean, represents the path of seeing. Faith crosses the four torrents, represents the preparatory stages, perhaps the path of accumulation or path of preparation. Is it like this? Diligence crosses the suffering of the three realms, represents the path of cultivation. Finally, wisdom attains purity, represents the path of no more learning, completely free from all defilements, explained through this utterly pure stage beyond learning. There is also another interpretation, perhaps. As for faith, it enables lay practitioners to cross rivers. As for diligence, it allows one to cross the ocean of conceptual thoughts in the desire realm. The carefulness afterward, right? Carefulness then helps to overcome the suffering of the desire realm itself. Finally, attaining wisdom means crossing beyond the afflictions of the highest realms, the form and formless realms, and liberating oneself from even the subtlest craving. It seems in the commentary there are two ways of explanation. Look at it when the time comes. Perhaps there are two ways of explanation, but our fundamental meaning is, with non-heedlessness, with faith, with diligence, with wisdom, the great rivers, great oceans, and suffering in all three realms, all of these can be crossed. Finally, attaining the pure path of no more learning, there's hope in this regard.
Ganga tatang tsamdang shirabni ti laggumsh shirabni na laggumsham kebir jonar pongwa ti lagbi ngang tsar janshib jut marito lakutra to argi songdin tavan taba juyo nambe ya lama tarir gebji chutushan chake chik taba taba nyaba nyuwa shedibda to chamja taga tāna vāngan chaka chā nike marigar nāgaya mutsur chā nāmbe chā vārstakan samka zirna wana chakib tēti tāla karudāt nirgāgā samir kācha tsō tāra la 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 tiri tāla karar tipo idavdāt na tirgāgā chā tā chā samba tsō yagna mēn tāna shkashti chō samir rayot chā marach zirgāhar aftē tāti jāvsam chēdar zēti chī vlap tsagrāni chā
We still sometimes say a bit. Some people say, you say, you seem to communicate quite well. They say the people below you, are they very learned? I said, the people below, some haven't even finished elementary school, but their oral Dharma presentations are still okay. Indeed, I see some here, it seems, I don't know, perhaps the introduction didn't mention it or something. Indeed, haven't studied, haven't even finished elementary school, but now they can communicate in Chinese. When I first started teaching in Chinese, if I said anything here and those below understood nothing, it would be very difficult, no way to correspond. But someone said, it seems everything you say, those below understand. When you laugh, they also laugh. So let's laugh again for everyone. However, we're probably still okay. If teaching abroad, Sometimes I think they should be laughing, then they have straight faces, as if whatever I say upsets them. Other times I don't think I've said anything funny, yet everyone bursts out laughing. So the West and the East, many laugh points are completely different. What we think is very rare, they think is nothing. They find it strange. Why are you laughing? So what are we teaching today? A bhiksu endowed with faithful friends, filled with wisdom, delighting joyfully in nirvana, cuts all bonds. Here, bhiksu, I see in one of our later chapters, in chapter 20-something, 26 or something, bhiksu is called this way. Because generally a bhiksu's mind isn't scattered. If the mind isn't scattered, they have time to focus, with subtle wisdom to focus. So bhiksu, on one hand, it's a designation for bhiksu, but actually the bhiksu status or monastic status, without other miscellaneous affairs, they can wholeheartedly study and contemplate. Through study and contemplation, they can comprehend the most profound meaning. So why in the sutras does the Buddha have special praise for monastics or special evaluations of some? If you're a monastic without worldly farming, commerce, including all kinds of distractions, worldly various emotions, various entanglements, none of these. If you don't have these, you have time, you have energy, you have this capacity. So indeed, in many cases, including in Tibetan Buddhism, those with deep research into the Dharma basically are the monastic community. Regarding Buddhism, especially in depth, like Secret Dharma, Prajnaparamita, Abhisamayalamkara, in many aspects having special deep study, all are like this. Basically looking at history, many especially good works basically appeared from monastic sanghas in monasteries. Among lay people there are also some, but they're few in number. So I think Acharya Prajnavarman, when he explains below, some things are very interesting. I also hope if we have time, look carefully at this commentary. It looks like he's explaining the verses inside, but sometimes in between he also expresses some especially profound principles. Sometimes when I read it myself, I seem to already understand, but when I bring it to class, I've forgotten it all. Sometimes when translating, wow, this section is quite good. Then bringing it to class, this verse I must read. Many things in the commentary, sometimes I also forget. Bringing it to class, there's a certain limit. Sometimes I feel these Indian great masters of previous generations truly very remarkable, not to mention the Buddha. The Buddha is certainly incomparable, nothing to say. But aside from the Buddha, Arhant Dharmatrata and Acharya Prajnavarman, these two I think are very impressive. Why? Because Arhant Dharmatrata, the Buddha taught so much in different occasions, different places, taught so much, but he completely classified it all together. For example, these types of faith, all placed in the chapter on faith. The nirvana part in the chapter on nirvana. The chapter on attachment is the part on attachment, all placed here. At that time, there was no internet. If the Buddha taught in different places, I don't know how this Dharmatrata compiled it. To compile it, although it looks like just one book, it probably took a very long time. This compilation probably wasn't that simple. Then I think Acharya Prajnavarman, I haven't yet seen the time period between Prajnavarman and Arhant Dharmatrata. You should also look sometimes. Now searching in Tibetan is a bit difficult. Others are relatively easy. But between these two, if they weren't very close, this would also be difficult. Because Dharmatrata already taught these verses after teaching them. But where are these stories? If we were to search, indeed some of the Buddha's dialogues with devas, some dialogues with merchants, some various kinds of situations. So Prajnavarman's commentary is also very good. In our study of this sutra, everyone should also in the future study with the attitude of propagating it, and in the learning process, if the Khenpos and Khenmos here have special circumstances and the transmission is broken, I can recite Those below have some, so you come before the Khenpos and Khenmos. It's best to complete this Dharma transmission. Of course, there are some individuals who may only rely on audio recordings. We'll also have opportunities in the future at that time, because truly this Udāna Sutra can be completed in a few hours. If recited quickly, probably 2 or 3 hours is enough. This we can also do in the future. If in other places some only listen to audio recordings, we can also find ways, but I hope those present here, it's best not to miss even one verse's transmission. In the future, truly propagating it yourself or studying it yourself. Actually, when studying, having the transmission, the feeling is also different. So we first, because of limited conditions, some of us receive in person, some of us receive through audio. This is very important. So this bhiksu is also an appellation, this meaning. Of course, the explanation of bhiksu just now is not in this commentary, it's taught below. Then here it mainly teaches eliminating some fetters, because through faith one eliminates one's own fetters. The meaning is, if a bhiksu has dharma friends with faith, or companions with this faith, or faith in the pratimoksha, and also companions of the pratimoksha, and also filled with wisdom in one's mind stream, if filled with wisdom, it seems in his hearing, right? We didn't tell the story just now. The story is very simple. It's fine. Here it's dang means filled, but in his commentary there's damba, which also has the meaning of instruction. But if it's instruction, you see here, shezrab ki ni. So perhaps explaining it this way is still better. Filled with wisdom, meaning a bhiksu's mind stream possesses pratimoksha, and also faith, and also filled with wisdom, and also delights in nirvana, delighting, aspiring toward liberation, willing to do so. If so, what can be eliminated? Can eliminate what's in the world, including greed, anger, ignorance in one's mind stream, afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. All fetters can be eliminated. This story is relatively easy. Someone also asked about one's best dharma friends or instructions filling one's mind stream, and also delight. What are these needed for? In this way, what can be eliminated? The Buddha spoke in this verse format. Here it mainly teaches faith and wisdom, speaking in terms of complete skillful means, and also liking nirvana, speaking in terms of complete aspiration. Finally, one can eliminate one's own obstacles. The meaning is that with faith and wisdom, actually for us, many obstacles in the practice process, like habitual obscurations, karmic obscurations, afflictive obscurations, cognitive obscurations, various kinds of path obstacles can also be removed. Those with faith, naturally these obstacles in one's mind stream can be eliminated. If one can cultivate well faith, discipline and wisdom, the wise eliminate many faults. They are called persons of excellent virtue. Here it mainly teaches what is a person of excellent virtue, a virtuous spiritual friend. What is a virtuous spiritual friend? If we can practice well, eliminate afflictions, transcend afflictions, practice well. Practice what? Mainly faith, discipline and wisdom. No matter who in your mind stream, cultivate your faith well, then uphold pure discipline. As much as possible increase your wisdom. Such a wise person, the commentary says this wise person cultivates samadhi, meaning cultivating concentration. But if mainly the 3 trainings of discipline, concentration and wisdom, this way also works. Or if one can skillfully practice discipline, concentration, wisdom, discipline, concentration, faith, such a wise person possessing such concentration, can eliminate all faults of body, speech and mind. So in our world, what do we call this? Called a person endowed with virtue, a person of excellent virtue, what we usually call a virtuous spiritual friend, a very remarkable great master. We can say this. Faith, right? Which one is it? Is it taught in the Samyuktagama or what? Actually, faith is very important. If faith is sufficient, hearing, wisdom, these naturally follow because one has faith, continuously doing so. If faith is insufficient, you look at the 12 divisions of scriptures, you may only look at 1 or 2. If faith isn't comprehensive, later you may not necessarily hear all of them. So this faith is still very important. It also teaches the principle in this regard.
Tatang Tsacham Person Song, Tongden Jongwar Narpangwa, Tena Kangdang Karsong, Tedang Tenam Chopper Yer.
Faith and discipline perfected, generosity without miserliness, wherever such a person goes, they receive offerings everywhere. This is, it seems, Shariputra and Maudgalyayana, taking their retinue wherever they went, received offerings from kings, ministers, and many faithful ones. The Buddha, in response to this matter, spoke this verse. The meaning is that with faith and discipline, both self-benefit and other benefit are perfected, this meaning. Faith and discipline perfected. Faith is faith in the three jewels. Discipline is pratimoksa vows. Here it doesn't teach bodhisattva vows or tantric vows. These aspects are not taught, mainly pratimoksa. Pratimoksa vows have lay vows and monastic vows. So, with faith and discipline perfected, this mainly teaches in terms of perfect self-benefit. The benefit of generosity without miserliness, with pure mind, so this teaches in terms of perfect benefit for others. So with faith, discipline and generosity, and also no miserliness, it seems generosity and non-miserliness, originally without miserliness, means willing to give. But here it's taught in terms of cause and effect or in terms of mutual interaction. So such a person in our world, probably indeed there are such people having faith, having discipline, plus willing to practice generosity. Such a person, no matter where they go, receives offerings from humans and gods. Such a person, their discipline is also perfected. So in this way, there's also no need to worry, especially monastics. Especially monastics, even if lay people cultivate on the tip of a fingernail, if such a famine appears, my monastics will never have poverty and livelihood. The Buddha also teaches this way in the sutras. So if one has discipline, has pure faith, has generosity, of course this generosity probably mainly teaches, like monastics, mainly dharma giving, if lay people, mainly material giving. Of course lay people also have some dharma giving. Now in our schools, among various people, there are quite many teaching worldly theories. Actually, lay people can also teach. I see many people through health cultivation, wellness, and also various pretexts, directly or indirectly teaching some Buddhist principles. Actually, this should also be acceptable, but some people may also be too cautious. There's also no need for this, like us monastics teaching the Dharma, also directly saying the Dharma, also no need to be so afraid. People nowadays have too small courage. Some don't even dare mention the word Buddha. For you, as a lay practitioner, there's nothing wrong. If the word Buddha comes from your mouth, you won't be arrested. But nowadays people sometimes give others, when saying Guru, they say SS. When saying Buddha, they say F. And also when saying Mara, they say M. Secret Dharma is also M. Mara is also M. So many code words. I think this courage is too small. Mentioning the word Buddha, you can't possibly be immediately arrested. This is unnecessary. Originally, Buddhism is a culture. If you can't teach religion, can't have faith, but Buddhist culture is in the whole world such a great culture. There are so many people who believe in Buddhism. Plus, like our Tibetan areas, basically Tibetan culture and Buddhism are completely tightly connected. If you want to separate them, then unless everything must be separated. Otherwise, there's no way. It's already integrated into the bloodline. So now many Buddhists, like the turbulent years before, perhaps indeed current people, I feel have even smaller courage. Because if you yourself aren't breaking the law, actually this is nothing. We can display this Buddhist culture through various means like national studies or culture or art, displayed in many ways. Actually, this so-called religion isn't a particularly frightening thing. Now, many people think, including some administrators, some people think religion is very frightening. Actually, it's not like this. Our religion, for human peace, what benefits it brings, everyone should see clearly. But if its influence is too great, of course, being low-key, this is also necessary. But there's also no need to be excessively afraid. The word Buddha, all replaced with F, Guru, all SS. Is it terrorism or Guru? So, what exactly does that mean? IS or SS? I'm not very clear. So sometimes it's also not that necessary. I also understand everyone for safety's sake. There's also nothing wrong mentioning one word. In that special era before, in the 50s and 60s, there was this, mentioning Om Mani Padme Hung in our Tibetan areas. Also, mentioning Om Mani Padme Hung, there was punishment. Mentioning the word Buddha, there was also punishment. Now there shouldn't be this. The wheel of history shouldn't roll back to that time. It shouldn't. If not, everyone also doesn't need to overinterpret excessively. Excessive interpretation for society in all aspects is also unfavorable. The wise are born in the world, faith and wisdom as refuge. These are the supreme wealth. Other wealth is all ordinary. Here it says, it seems at that time there was a merchant among all his possessions, among treasures. From his treasure house he took out the best treasure. He thought like this and asked the Buddha, among all my treasures, what is the most worthwhile, most valuable treasure I can take out? The Buddha said, the wise, those with wisdom in this human world, the most valuable are our faith and wisdom, these two. These are one's true refuge, not only this life's refuge, but refuge for all future lives. These two are also the most supreme wealth. So what about other wealth? Why is this the supreme wealth? It is the cause that can perfect all merit. Others, including gold, silver, treasures, houses, cars, these worldly defiled possessions, they're not the most perfect. Through them various sufferings may arise. They are most ordinary. So we should have wisdom and faith. These two are very important. The causes of our higher rebirth and definite excellence, faith and wisdom in the Nagarjuna's precious garland, it also teaches this way. So faith and wisdom should be most important, and also other worldly wealth should be very ordinary, without any direct significance, this meaning. Before, Master Uyi said, having faith without understanding can increase afflictions. Having understanding without faith can increase wrong views. This wisdom and faith, these two complement each other. If you have faith but no wisdom, it may increase afflictions. Some people have very sufficient faith but have no wisdom. In the end, they make themselves very miserable. Some people have wisdom but no faith. This kind of person is also very dangerous because they're very clever. They have certain wisdom, but because they have no faith in the three jewels and such, wrong views constantly spread in their mind stream. This is also very frightening. So here it also teaches the most precious wealth in the world is faith and wisdom. In the world, what's most worth relying on yourself is faith and wisdom. Whoever possesses these two is also very important. So everyone should also know, in our chapter on faith before, faith is the root. Sometimes it's together with discipline, sometimes together with wisdom, sometimes together with generosity. Wherever there's faith, it's like our salt. Sometimes put in tea. In some of our teas we put salt, some don't put it, but salt can be put in many things. In food, so this faith, in many merits, it's indispensable. With faith, truly this person is a very good practitioner. So examine yourself too. Do you have faith and wisdom in your mind stream? If you have them, not having money is also fine. But some people don't think that way. They just think it's fine. Not having faith doesn't matter. Not having wisdom doesn't matter. If you have some money, perhaps it's a bit more convenient. Anyway, whatever is fine. All right, I'll stop here.
Sonam dei tamse thobaya tonne de jana pase kirgana jirano chupai jupun sonen dra
ma bandara badna Sūtra ma bandara badna Sūtra Udāna Sūtra L32